Hi there. Today I'm going to be discussing life expectancy and how you can start to think about your product, where to gain the usage data, and what testing that you'll need to implement to ensure that you don't disappoint you and your end user. The life expectancy of components is essential to understand. Now, if you don't know what sort of life expectancy is required from a component, you won't know what level of quality you're looking for in that very component. Now, it's very tempting when developing new products to cut corners here and save time and money and get your product to market as fast as possible. But the truth is that if you make mistakes in the early stages, like here, it can cost you your business, your money, your investment. Now, before I forget, just hit that like and subscribe button to ensure that you keep up to date with product development, China manufacturing, and importantly, because it's getting flipping expensive, China shipping. Now, if you think about the last product that you bought, how did it compare to your expectations of life expectancy? Did it outperform the expectations or did it break on first use? I think we've all been in a position where we've bought something, possibly online, and it breaks on first use. So suppose something were to break on first use or early in its life expectancy. We wouldn't be happy as consumers. So as product developers, how do we ensure that we get it right? Do we have to start thinking about how the product will last and what we need to consider very early on? Yes, we do. Now we're there at the product specification phase, it's really time to start to think about it. Of course, we want a product to last in line with consumers' expectations. However, getting that expectation data can be more challenging than it sounds. Let's take an example of a consumable item, a toothbrush. Oral-B, a Procter & Gamble group, says that your toothbrush should be changed every 3 to 4 months. They print this information on their packaging. They inform consumers that they should be following this kind of life cycle timing, and the consumer has this in the back of their mind when purchasing a toothbrush. Now, but how can Oral-B really tell if a particular toothbrush from a particular manufacturer will last a certain amount of time? How will they ensure that that product meets or exceeds this time frame and perform as expected in the customer's environment and usage habits? What happens if it doesn't or if it fails? It'll be no surprise that testing is the key to answering many of these life expectancy questions. Testing brings that uncertainty in products into the objective, measurable world. So how can we develop test procedures that simulate real-world environments and customer usages? Now, if we go back to our toothbrush example, we can speculate finger in the air on some of the usages. On average, consumers use toothbrushes twice a day. Most manufacturers recommend a 2-minute brush. However, most of us fall short and opt for a 45-second brushing our teeth. Over a 2 to 3 month period, we can speculate that a toothbrush's actual life usage will be 360 minutes. We probably look at translating this time into cycles, as test standards reference cycles rather than time. So we would really look to build a rig and test our toothbrush, simulating the usage of a consumer. We would then input the toothbrush using specific expectancy criteria and see if the design and manufacturing capabilities are up to the level of expectation from the consumer. In this example, we know that one of the parameters that we can add to our testing standard and test specification, which is cycles as discussed above. The other parameters would be force and speed, bristle retention, force, chemical makeup, and physical inspection. Of course, we only calculated a rough finger in the air example of only one of our test parameters. There are many parameters to test when it comes to testing just toothbrushes as an example. Now, there is actually a testing standard that instructs testing facilities on toothbrush testing. It's ISO 20126. Within it, it contains the parameters that toothbrushes should be tested to. And if you're looking to produce products overseas, research testing standards is necessary. And it's relatively easy to do too. It's not very hard. Just type into Google your product, then ISO testing standards. The ISO stands for the International Organization for Standardization. And although there may not be a specific test standard for your component, just familiarizing yourself with the test standards and the procedures that the ISO standard test utilize will get you thinking about how you can quantify your testing requirements and make sure that those are safe for actual users. So what are my specific tips for putting your mind at ease and producing stock from overseas? It's simple. Test. Now, testing ensures that your products are made well and you know what you're getting before parts are shipped. Also, you can test before you pay. So how do I do it? Now let me give you an example of a component that we recently resourced for a customer. The project scope was to resource a handle or a pair of handles for a component. Now I won't describe exactly what that component is, however you won't go too far wrong if you think of handles of toolboxes. The task was to outsource the part to get a more competitive price. The handle looked a bit like this one here. Actually, exactly that one here. The current cost of the handle supplied in the UK was £30. The handle that we found from the supplier was £3. But usually common sense would state that if a component was 10 times as much, then either someone has a fantastic markup baked into their cost, or the cheaper component is a substandard part. Of course, we cannot interrogate too much the supplier's margins at this point. However, we can do one thing, and we can see how the cheaper component performs in functional testing when compared to the more expensive one. So we developed a test procedure to simulate pull test loads off the handle to ensure that the integrity of the handle was comparable to the current more expensive handle. And the pull test loads came back from the testing lab showing that indeed the pull test was similar to the recent sample, which had a value of £30. Now this wasn't the only test required to say that it's genuine like for like and we can use it in this application. We also need to complete material analysis on the plastic and the metal, and also some fatigue testing. However, we can start to put our mind at ease from this small test, knowing that the components are something like those described. Now, as we start to build more and more data points on the components through testing that we're sourcing, we can begin to relax or worry in some instances about the parts we're buying from overseas. Now, say that your components don't require a complete teardown or destructive test. What other tests could you be looking at or considering conducting in the market before you've actually shipped them? Many tests can be employed before components are actually shipped. A visual inspection is the simplest one. Here's an example that we conducted recently, and it can remove some unwanted parts from the pile. We don't also need to inspect 100% of the product all the time. Sample acceptance testing can allow you to use small batches of parts or test small batches of parts and extrapolate data to get a pretty solid understanding of your full batch. Now this video discusses just one of the critical points of our product specifications. Many items need to be understood in the design specification before looking to source your new component. It can be complex and time consuming to construct one. It can also get a bit, confusing. However, we've designed a dashboard to assist with product specification construction. Our dashboard is for the online entrepreneur or online seller who needs an efficient way to create, find, produce and source products from scratch. The Ultimate Product Dashboard is an easy to use educational tool that develops, helps and guides product success. Unlike other online courses or marketing guides, our product dashboard shows you your product idea through actionable interactive content. We're with you at every step of the way. Now, if you like the sound of this, the link is in the description to our Gumroad product. So don't get too hung up and don't be too scared. There are things out there to set your mind at ease, and make sure that you implement some of the testings that you need to do actually in market so that you don't get burnt and you actually set your mind at ease. Also, I'm scared, I'm still scared, and I do this for a living. So it's absolutely normal to actually be quite concerned when sourcing from abroad, but there are many things that you can do and you can put in place to set your mind at ease and make sure that you get that absolutely perfect component. Now, if you do like the idea of getting a good component, then we've made a video on making a product specification for overseas manufacturers Also, it'll help you when you get to your RFQ phase and you actually are searching for suppliers. Now, until next time, bye.